Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Gardening for Beginners. I know a lot of y'all are coming because y'all need help, and a lot of y'all are starting your gardens this year for the first time for the reason I'm making this daggone series on YouTube right now. You guys are tired of the recalls. You're tired of hearing about what got extra chemicals and stuff in it. You're tired about all the daggone lawsuits because companies are not being honest, and you're just tired of the meat recalls and produce recalls. So now at this point, you're just basically like me, like I'll grow it myself. So yeah, I've been learning to grow my own food for 3 years now. At this moment in time, next year is going to be the fourth. I've grown everything from blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, bananas. I now have banana babies in my kitchen right now off the mama banana tree. Pineapples, corn, wheat, you name it. I've successfully figured out a way to halfway have grown it. You can go through my channel on the Double T app if you want to see all of that, or I did post a couple of highlights from the one when I was posting on YouTube. So there's a couple of playlists if you want to go ahead and look at them. So getting into it, what's in the first episode? You're going to learn about the 3 different ways on how you can grow your own food. You're going to learn about cost effective, how much you're going to roundabout spend, because gardening is very expensive. I'm going to tell you the fertilizers that you can stock up on now. They're all organic. I'm not sponsored. This is just literally what I've been using for 3 going on 4 years now. So let's get on into it. Depending on how you want to do it, where you are, effectively, there are 3 ways that you can pretty much grow your own food. Nature makes the way. If you gonna grow indoors because you either or in an apartment, you just don't have the space, you don't have the etc., you can put them in plants, and then, well, not plants, but in pots. Just make sure they're not decorative pots. I'll show you an example in a second. But make sure they're regular pots. Just make sure they got holes at the bottom of the pot. The holes is for drainage so that the water doesn't stay up in the soil. If it does that, your plants get a thing called root rot. It smells really, really, really bad unless you've pretty much killed the plant. So just make sure if you're gonna grow indoors, you mess around and have some holes at the bottom of the pots. Hold on a second, I'll show you. This is a decorative pot. You see how there's a hole right here? It don't come out. It's for decoration. You stick a pot inside that to make it look pretty from the outside. What I mean by holes at the bottom, you need some type of holes at the bottom of your pots so that you have drainage. Okay? I would invest in a grow light, a full spectrum grow light. Needs to say full spec. You can go to Amazon and go get you one. Why does it need to say full spec? It's going to mimic the UV light that comes from the sun so that you're able to grow inside, so that the plants get the necessary nutrients that they would normally get from the sun, from the light inside. Okay? If you don't want to buy a full spec grow lamp, you can put them by a very, very bright window. Just make sure it's a very bright window because it's the winter time, so they need that sunlight. Okay. Make sure, because you have the drainage and all that you have a tray or something to collect the water, because you're going to need to be watering them. If you're doing this inside, you can take this tip inside, outside, whatever, to make sure that you're not over watering or under watering your plants. They do sell water detection stuff on Amazon and whatnot, but you can just do what I do, which is like this. Stick your finger in the plant. Be careful. If your finger comes back and you feel that the soil is damp or dry, don't water it. Water it, okay? If it's like lightly damp. Now, if it's damp / wet, don't water it. But if it's dry, go ahead and water it. She gonna need some water. It's because of the terracotta. For the beginner planters out there, if you're doing this inside, I don't recommend you get terracotta. I know it's very, very pretty. Number 1, it's very expensive. And number 2, you're going to have to water a whole lot more than you would if you had plastic. Now, I don't recommend you get plastic. Number one, they're also expensive. Not as expensive as a terracotta, but once you get up in gallon size, i.e. how much dirt you're gonna have to put in said pot to fill that up, it gets expensive. I suggest you go with something like that. This is called a grow bag. I believe that's a 15, 20 gallon. That's a grow bag. This is a grow bag. What is a grow bag? A grow bag is basically a fabric pot that you can grow in. I highly recommend them, especially if you're on a budget, especially if you're trying to grow outside and you don't have a whole bunch of space to pertain to the last example that I'm going to give you. Okay, so if you're going outside or inside, I don't recommend that you put the grow bags inside. I really put them outside. But if you're going outside and you don't have the space to do raised beds, which is the next thing, highly suggest you get grow bags. You can find them on Amazon in a pack of 5 to 10, and depending on the gallon size, because they get up there, you can get them from a 1 gallon all the way up to like that brown one right there on the end. That one, that's 100 gallon. So highly recommend. It works like a fabric pot, like a regular plastic pot, except your plants don't get rope bound like that. So instead of you having to eye the bottom of the pot like you would a regular one, once the plant starts, the roots start growing towards the edge of the pot, because it's fabric, the air gets in it and it kind of kills the edge of the root, telling the plant don't grow that way. So they won't grow out that way. They won't get root ground, but I will say if you are putting them in the grass, I wouldn't suggest that, because I have found that when I had blueberries in them, the roots grew out the bottom of the pot. So pro tip, that's number two. Option number 3, you can do what I have been doing, is raised beds. I will suggest, if you are renting, ask your landlord first before you do that. If you are planning to move, do not get raised beds, because trying to, mess around and dig up all the dirt that you're going to put up in there, not going to be fun. Not going to be fun at all. So, yeah, me and my husband own our house. We're paying a mortgage, so we don't really give a fudge. So there you go. Pro tip number 4, because some of y'all are going to want to, once y'all get into this, y'all going to want some trees, some type of fruit trees and all that. Get your land looked at, especially before you start putting in raised beds as well, or planting in ground. You need to know where the wires are, where your pipes are, yada, yada, yada. The reason I say that is because depending on what tree you decide to try and plant, or what bush you decide to try and plant, the roots like to spread, okay? It's not like a dog or anything. They're going to go looking for water, okay? And depending on where the pipes are or whatever wires you have in the ground, they not going to know that. So when they get to looking, they're going to get to tearing stuff up. So I highly suggest you do that, especially before you start planting. That is that next tip. As to right now, because it's the winter time, you can stock up on dirt, especially if you are doing raised beds. I don't recommend going to Home Depot and Lowe's and buying the 20 bag dollars of dirt. Don't, especially if you're doing raised beds, simply because you gonna need a lot more than you thought. To fill up this one was gonna be about 50, 60 bags of the $20 dirt, okay? To fill up this one was gonna be about 30, 40 bags to fill up this one. It's expensive. Dirt is going to be the most expensive thing that you get. Normally what I do, especially if you are in Georgia, you can look into this company. I'll put it in the comments. It's called Soil Cubed. Basically what they end up doing is they deliver you a big old block of dirt. It's about half the size pallets that you would see at Home Depot and all the rest of that, but it's dirt. Do not skimp on it. I will have to do a video on how to make your own dirt if you're trying to do that, but I don't recommend buying Miracle-Gro or the rest of that, because soil life is going to be important. It's going to be what feeds your plants, which is going to be what feeds you. You don't want nothing with no chemicals in it. If you are building your raised beds out of wood, do not get pressure treated wood. I repeat, don't do that, because them chemicals are going to leach into the soil, which is going to leach into what the plants eat, which is you're going to be eating that. Don't do that. We'll come back for part 2. All right. So, like I said, I like the soil, I will put in the comments as to what I use. You can make your own. I will look into a video on how to do that. I'll do my own research before I post it to y'all. But you're going to want to kind of stay organic if you can, because like I said, the chemicals, all that leaches into your soil would feed your plants, would feed you. So just throwing that out there. Stock up on mulch while you can this winter. They're going to be cheaper than what if you do in the spring or summertime, because everybody going to want to buy mulch and whatnot to make their yards look pretty over the spring and summer. So do it now while it's cheap. Do not get none of the dyed mulch at all, simply because all that is dyed and that's going to leach into your soil. What I normally do is I go get cedar. You can use cedar bedding. You can get the bedding from Tractor Supply. They sell like a big old cube of it. If not, you can go to Lowe's and get the cedar mulch. Home Depot does not sell it, but that's what I use. You're gonna need about 2 inches, either on your pots if they're outside, or on your raised beds if they're outside, or if you plant it in ground, you just gonna want 2 inches, period. What that does is it acts as a barrier between the layer of soil and the sun, so it don't basically dehydrate all the water out of your soil, so you out here watering like that. Nobody's going to want to do that in the middle of summer and 80 to 90 degree weather, and I'm in Georgia, so that's with humidity, so it's going to feel like an oven. Not going to be fun. Not going to be fun at all. Now, as far as the fertilizers go, I suggest y'all stock up now, like I said, in the winter, because in the spring and summertime, when everybody and their mama going to start their gardens, they going to not really be thinking of it. Some of us gardeners going to know, because we going to be trying to save money, but yeah. So, I am not sponsored. This is just what I use and what I have been using for the past 2-3 years. The brand is called Espoma Organic. Now, they make an all-purpose one, and that's going to say Garden Tone on it. Garden Tone, all-purpose. You can get that from Home Depot, Lowe's. Tractor Supply sells the big bag. I think Amazon sells the big bag if you need it delivered, yada, yada. But Garden Tone uses all-purpose. Basically, what it is a granular, slow-release fertilizer. And normally what I do is I take a little bit in my hands and sprinkle it around the base of each plant. And every time either rains or I go out and water my garden, it feeds the plant as well. Garden Tone is going to be the all-purpose one. Now, you don't have to get the rest of these if you have Garden Tone. But if you want to spend a little extra money, they do have other ones. I've just been stocking up. I use Tomato Tone to feed my tomatoes in the summertime. Berry Tone I have found works very well on black elderberries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, blackberries. I've had them all, and I've been feeding them with that. All I would say is be very careful the amount that you give them, because they do have the acidity for the blueberries to make them happy, because the blueberries have to have very acidic soil. So be careful with that. They do make a citrus tone for your citrus and all them other things. They also make a rose tone. So that's just what I use slow release granular fertilizer wise. I got to get some more berry tone and garden tone next year. But yes, I suggest while y'all can, stock up while it's cheap, because they're going to be expensive come about spring next year. Get you some of this. You can find this at Home Depot. And again, you can find all of these at Home Depot, Amazon, Tractor Supply, Lowe's for those, and the Garden Tone, as well as for this too. I do know they make a 10-10 and all the rest of that, but this is literally what I use in my garden. It's a liquid one, so you just add a little bit to your watering can, or you could put some in a jug or whatever and just give them to it that way with some water and just, yeah. So it's a liquid fertilizer versus the granular one. Now, if you're going to try to be making clones and continue your harvest without the seeds this year, I found this at Home Depot, and I've been using it to basically make cuttings off of my plant, and it works very, very well. I don't remember how much I paid for it. It's a small jar. It's a very small jar. But, yeah. definitely get you some alcohol, okay? You never make any cuts off of a plant without sterilizing your whatever you're going to use to cut them, because if there is one plant going through something, stress, sick, or whatever, and another plant is prone to that, and you cut from one plant to another, you risk spreading that. So get you some alcohol. That's technically about it. It's not in this video, but I'll post the name of it in the comments. DE, make sure it says food grade on it. Has to say food grade. Very good organic pest control management. What else can I think of? This, you can find this online, Tractor Supply, I believe Home Depot as well. But it's basically an organic pest control killer. This works very, very well too. When I go stock up on my garden stuff, I'll make another video as to everything, every single thing that I use, so y'all can see a picture of it and everything. But so far, that's what I have been using in my garden thus far. I do have Olas out here as well as the rest of that, but like I said, we'll have to post that in episode 2. I don't know if I talked about it in the other video, but what is a grow zone and where you are? Grow zone is where you are in relations to the sun, and the first frost is basically when it first gets cold, and the last frost is basically when it stops getting cold. Depending on what you are growing, your plants may only grow in a certain season. So kind of want to know that, because depending on your grow zone and where you are and your frost dates, you have a certain time of growing stuff. So if you ever look on the back of a seed packet and it tells you a certain amount of time that's got to be in there, they normally tell you in the back of the seed packets. A plant's life cycle only lasts for a certain amount of time. You could try and prolong it, but that's why you have grow zones and first frost dates and all the rest of that. So if you go and plant, I don't know, for example, I'm trying to think. If you go and plant a marigold in the dead middle of winter, it's not going to do anything, because number one, it's cold, and number two, it don't like that. That's not normally when it grows. So you might not see no activity until probably spring when it normally starts growing. So you're going to have to go ahead and look on into that. So I hope these tips help. I hope these tips help for y'all starting out. Like I said, episode 2, I'll probably post around the new year, maybe. Going into that, because I myself got to stock up on some fertilizers and some seeds my daggone self. And I guess we'll do in-depth organic pest control to get y'all prepared for that, as well as other fertilizers that you can use at home to combine with what I just gave y'all to help your boost your plants up a little bit. So from my garden to yours, you guys have a very blessed day. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.